As their fists made contact with each other, the valiant energy that Humu applied to battle helper caused the bones in Red Butterfly's arm to break. She admitted defeat and took out her bag of tiles for Humu. As Humu was approaching the tiles to pick it up, Hongryun appeared out of nowhere and hit him like a NFL linebacker. Humu was sent flying into a wall, and after recovering he noticed Red Snake, the guy that he took the tile from in the beginning of the test. Red Snake never thought he would meet Humu again and gave him his name. He explained that Hongryun and Red Butterfly were in the same group as him. Hongryun angrily turned towards Humu and asked if he did this to Red Butterfly. At this point, Humu was starting to get angry, and he said, "Yes, I did that. So what?" He was about to continue on his rant, but it was quickly announced that the 3 hours had passed, and the ranking would be announced shortly. In third place, Yoonteak with 21 tiles. In second place, Hyunmoo with 69 tiles. Nice. Finally, in first place, Red Butterfly with 88 tiles. Hyunmoo questioned why he didn't get first place, and Hongryun explained that they gave Red Butterfly their tiles, and because Hyunmoo couldn't collect Red Butterfly's tiles in time, she got first place. Red Butterfly tried to explain to Hyunmoo that it was a misunderstanding, and he should have been the one in first place. However, Hyunmoo decided to forget about it since he couldn't go back in time. As he walked away, Hongryun called out to him, asking him to apologize for breaking Red Butterfly's arm. Hyunmoo wanted to turn around and teach Hongryun a lesson, but he couldn't afford getting too much attention, so he thought about his options. It made sense that Hongryun is upset about him breaking Red Butterfly's arm. He understood where she was coming from, but why is she making it seem like he was trying to rob her? He fought fair and square and won. They stole first place from him, and now she is making it seem like he was the bad guy. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that he needed to teach Hongryun a lesson. He activated the skill domination. Hongryun, who was mouthing off, suddenly froze. To her, it looked like Hyunmoo was surrounded by 5-star monsters and above. Everything around her, even her allies, looked like monsters. Hyunmoo regretted what he did. He wanted to teach her a lesson, but it was looking worse than what he had in his head. He didn't know what to do, so he ran away. Inside the observation room, Lee and his guild member were stunned. The guild member asked Lee if Hyunmoo won because Red Butterfly had let her guard down. Lee knew that Hyunmoo's last move was too precise to be a fluke, but it still didn't make sense. It would make sense if they were the same level, but for a hunter who isn't even level 10 yet to beat someone twice his level is unheard of. The guild member asked Lee if he would like to meet up with Red Butterfly first, but Lee told him that he would meet with Hyunmoo first. Inside the waiting room, Hyunmoo was cooling off. He was fine when using the skill Battle Helper with Valiant Energy, but Domination used up too much of his mana. He wondered if he would have this raging headache until he returned to Hell, and wished he didn't use Domination on Hongryun. The guild member that was with Lee in the observation room approached Hyunmoo, congratulating him for successfully passing the test. He introduced himself as Team Insu, the secretary team leader of Tisun Guild. He handed him the guild card and explained that because he possessed great skill, the Tisun Guild would like to recruit him and provide him with all the necessities to improve his level. The Tisun Guild would make sure he reached his highest potential as a hunter, beyond what any other guild could provide. Hyunmoo grabbed the guild card and asked Minsu if the Tisun Guild could help him reach the stars. Inside Lee's car, Lee watched the video of Hyunmoo and Red Butterfly's fight. He couldn't get enough of it, and it was like he was watching a movie. Minsu knocked on the car door window, and after Lee rolled down the window, he lowered his head and apologized. Lee could tell that Hyunmoo rejected the Tisun Guild's offer. Minsu says Hyunmoo wasn't interested even after he raised the conditions. Lee expected this. He had a feeling this would happen because strong hunters like Hyunmoo have a sense of pride, and he asked Minsu the reason Hyunmoo gave for rejecting the offer. Minsu says that Hyunmoo talked about reaching the stars. This shocked Lee, and he asked Minsu if what he said was correct. Minsu explained that he thought it was strange to, or maybe a new term young hunters were using, but he isn't sure what Hyunmoo meant, and asked Lee if he knew what Hyunmoo meant. Lee says it was his first time hearing the term stars as well, and asked Minsu if Red Butterfly accepted their offer. Minsu reported that Red Butterfly accepted just as they planned. Lee praised Minsu on his good work and told the driver to take him home. As he drove off, he thought about what Minsu had reported. Since he couldn't tell Hyunmoo's intentions when he brought up the stars, he couldn't determine what he wanted. But one thing is for certain, he had to keep an eye on him. Inside Min's car, Hyunmoo was looking over some cards. Min asked him what they were, and he explained that it was the guild cards of all the guilds that tried to recruit him after the test was done. She then asked him what was in the box that was on his lap. Hyunmoo opened the box, recalling what had happened after he left the waiting area. Red Butterfly approached him and apologized for what Hongryun did during the test. He didn't know what she was talking about at first, but then remembered that Hongryun was the muscle mommy from before. He was just trying to scare her so she would shut up. but he ended up sending her to a hospital. Red Butterfly gave him the prize for coming in first place because it should have been his in the first place. She begged him to take it. Hyunwoo explained to Min that he really didn't have a choice but to accept it. The first place prize was the rare equipment, Tenacious Grip gloves, and it's something Hyunwoo thought would be useful. Min then told Hyunwoo that the crystal moss he brought back from hell this time was all sold to Park again. It looked like Park had been going around looking for crystal moss, and even if Min sells it to another buyer, Park will find a way to get it for himself. Hyunwoo questioned why the old man was buying all that crystal moss. Even if crystal moss was a ruby that has a high innate value, does anyone need that much of it? If there was someone giving him orders behind the scene, then that would explain how he got the funds and why he was buying so much crystal moss. And if that is the case, then he wanted to contact the boss directly instead of meeting with the middleman. Bro activated some Sherlock Holmes level deduction skills. However, it didn't seem like directly contacting the boss would be easy. Min asked him if he got anything else from the first place prize, and Hyunwoo recalled that there was a prize money too. He turned the box upside down looking for the money, and a check fell out. He then asked Min if she wanted to go to a restaurant before they headed home, showing her the check for 50 million. Later, after having dinner, the two arrived home. Hyunwoo was impressed with the prize the association gave out. Min explained that the association had respect for hunters, and because of all the fame and money, ordinary people think living the hunting life is easy. Min asked him if he shouldn't be careful with how he was spending his money. However, Hyunwoo didn't think there was a point in worrying. He was now registered as a hunter and was only spending his money. Suddenly, he sensed murderous intent. He told Min to get back into the car and lock it. As he walked away following the murderous intent, he told Min not to get out until he returned. After arriving at the location where the murderous intent was coming from, he noticed dead bodies in Park. He asked him what he was doing behind Min's house. Park explained that the dead bodies that were on the ground were members of the Japanese Yakuza. They were after the crystal moss that Hyunwoo was selling. It's very valuable even in the overseas market. The Japanese Yakuza aren't the only ones interested in the crystal moss Hyunwoo had. Even the top-ranking hunters were looking for him. Park explained that if he hadn't protected the house, Min would have gotten hurt. Hyunwoo asked him what he wanted in return for protecting Min, and Park told him to create an alliance with the Tisun Guild. Realizing that Lee was behind this, Hyunwoo told Park that he rejected the Tisun Guild's offer earlier. Park ignored him and continued on. He says that he looked into Hyunwoo, but surprisingly he couldn't find anything, as if someone erased every information about him. The crystal moss he sells can only be obtained from high-level dungeons. The consequences for showing off during the test is catching up to him. Not just that, Park learned from Lee that Hyunwoo was moving during the test like someone who had been entering dungeons for a long time, and yet his career was dungeon cleaner. Something was fishy. Park thought he was working with an organization, so he advised him to form an alliance with Tisun Guild again. Hyunwoo thanked him again and told him he wasn't part of an organization. Thinking that Hyunwoo is lying, Park decided to take a different approach and asked him to be understanding if he is a little rough. Hyunwoo's skills automatically activated, sensing that he was in danger. Hyunwoo called out to Park, trying to explain the misunderstanding, but Park suddenly attacked him with his cane. Hyunwoo dodged the attack, and from that awkward position he attacked. Park didn't bother to dodge, expecting that the punch would have no effect because Hyunwoo was in an awkward position. But to his surprise, the punch pushed him back, and Hyunwoo says he started this, so he is just defending himself. Park took off his trench coat. If Hyunwoo didn't want to take his advice, then he would have to play rougher. He threw the trench coat at Hyunwoo and pulled out a sword. Hyunwoo complained, saying the sword was cheating, and as Park was about to slice him, Battle Helper activates, helping him dodge the attacks. Park continued to attack, pushing Hyunwoo to the wall. He couldn't back up anymore, so he used the walls as a spring and jumped over Park. After landing on the ground, he gets happy that he got behind Park, but suddenly Park attacks. He dodged the attack and used the domination skill, stunning Park for a moment. Using this opening, he grabbed Park's collar, getting ready to put the old man to sleep. But suddenly Park's body became heavy, and he asked Hyunwoo if the domination skill was illusionary, which would be odd. He cuts Hyunwoo's wrist, saying he didn't cut his neck on purpose because he didn't plan on killing him. And he asked Hyunwoo who he was working for. Hyunwoo started laughing concerning Park, so he asked him what he found so funny. Hyunwoo asked him if Lee didn't give him the full information about the test. Park looked at his sword, realizing that the steel was melting away. He hadn't taken into account Hyunwoo's poisoned blood. But before he could react, Hyunwoo grabbed his face and pinned him into the wall with his bleeding hand. Hyunwoo asked him if he didn't spend time building his poison resistance even though he was so high level. To free himself, Park broke Hyunwoo's hand and sent him flying with a kick. He quickly took out a potion from his jacket and used it on himself. Hyunwoo, who was healed, stood up asking Park to give him some of the potion. Park couldn't believe it. He was certain that he made contact with Hyunwoo's arm and ribs, so how was he standing there like nothing had happened? He asked Hyunwoo if he had a healing skill. Hyunwoo dodged his question and asked him if he wanted to continue. Park looked at his broken sword, realizing that he couldn't continue the fight, and told Hyunwoo that he was done fighting. His goal was to offer him a deal, not to fight him. Hyunwoo reminded him that he was the one that attacked first. Park explained that he was trying to convince him with force, but Hyunwoo gave him more resistance than he planned for. Again, he started to wonder which organization would be able to train Hyunwoo to this level. This irritates Hyunwoo and he says, "Listen, old man, I don't work for an organization. I work alone if we're not counting Min." Park asked, "Where are you getting your crystal moss from?" Hyunwoo told him that it was his business secret, and Park explained that if he joined the Tisun Guild he could have everything he imagined, and more. Hyunwoo told him that he promised himself that he would never work for someone, although that could change if Park decided to work under him. Park laughed, asking Hyunwoo to stop talking nonsense, and if he had nothing else to say then he would take his leave. Park was someone Hyunwoo wanted to work with for his connections, and after finding out that he is also a capable hunter, he couldn't lose this chance. And as Park was walking away, he asked him why he thought the Tisun Guild was so great. He heard they were smaller than the Rank 3 Guild Almighty Lotus, and their average member is weaker than a Rank 2. He asked him if the Tisun Guild was just popular because of Lee, why not drop them and invest in someone who is young and talented like me? Park replied saying, "I believe there are two types of people that go around saying what he just said. First is a fool that's unaware of reality, and second is a loser drowning in their own ambitious thoughts of becoming successful like Lee." Hyunwoo laughed. For someone who just lost to him, Park was being a little harsh, and even if he tried to use the damage blade, Park couldn't touch him. Park directed a skill at him, and explained that if he fought with the intention to kill, then Hyunwoo wouldn't be left standing. Got a taste of humbling pie. On top of that, there were plenty of members in the Tisun Guild that were stronger than him, and on top of them all was Lee. And for someone like Hyunwoo who hasn't even reached level 10 yet, to disrespect Lee wasn't even funny. Hyunwoo asked, "What is so impressive about Lee? I will show you that I am better than Lee, but tell me, how much stronger do I have to be compared to Lee?" Park laughed and told Hyunwoo that Lee reached level 20 less than half a year after becoming a hunter, which was only possible because Lee had the backing of the Tisun Guild. For a regular person it would take them a year or more. So if Hyunwoo wanted to show him that he was more talented than Lee, he would have to show him something impressive. Hyunwoo told him that he will get to level 20 in 2 weeks, and if he could do it, then Park would have to become his business partner. Park told him that his bet isn't something he could laugh at. He didn't know where Hyunwoo was training, but for his sake he hoped it was better than where Lee trained. As Park walked off, Hyunwoo smiled, saying, "Don't worry, I know just the place." Later in hell, Hyunwoo had a goblin pinned on the ground and was using him as a punching bag. The goblin bit his fist, but soon realized that his blood was poisonous. The goblin stopped biting Hyunwoo's fist, but Hyunwoo shoved his fist down the goblin's throat, edging him on to eat the food he put in his mouth. After a little struggle, the goblin died and Hyunwoo leveled up, reaching level 15. The conquering star Arden started observing Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo lifted his hand at the sky to give the star the middle finger, but he quickly realized that his hand was deformed due to what he did to the goblin. He wrapped a bandage around his hand, realizing that he shouldn't be pushing his body this hard. Suddenly, Renian appeared out of nowhere, screaming at Hyunwoo that fairies are scared of fighting, and he dared to continue fighting. Seeing that Hyunwoo was injured, she poked her staff into the bandages and asked him if she should try to apply some pressure, and started drinking his blood. Hyunwoo became irritated, but calmed down after realizing that he could be revived if he died. But he wasn't sure if he could survive if she drank his blood in the real world. At least things were getting better. Compared to wandering around trying to find monsters, this was a big improvement. The only problem is the goblin from his first day in hell. Out of all the goblins he killed, he still wasn't able to find that goblin. That goblin was stronger than all the other goblins he's seen. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Hyunwoo instantly backed off, questioning where the goblin appeared from, and he called out to Renian to get away from the goblin and find a place to hide, but she had already disappeared. Seeing its dead comrades, the goblin let out a battle cry. Hyunwoo asked the monster what it was doing. He never thought that monsters would get sad after their own kind is killed. He shouted at the monster to stop wasting his time and attack him. The goblin was sent into a rage and it rushed at Hyunwoo. He died, and after reviving he received a new quest, enemies on a wooden bridge, and his object is to kill the goblin that killed him. Hyunwoo laid there exhausted. He really pissed off the goblin by killing his friends. Well, no matter how strong it is, it was just a goblin. All he had to do was lure it into a trap like any other mob, and get some poison-laced thumbtacks to use in the trap. As he made up his plan to kill the goblin, it appeared behind him and killed him. Hyunwoo died, and on his 6th try he was running away from the goblin. He questioned if killing the goblin's friend triggered some kind of event, because the goblin wasn't even giving him a second to rest. Honestly though, the goblin was the one who started it first. The goblin attacked, and Hyunwoo countered, giving him hope that he could survive if he just countered the goblin's attack. However, shortly after the goblin killed him, he realized that he is no match for the goblin, and questioned if he should just hide like a coward after reviving. There is an old saying, revenge only leads to more revenge, and forgiveness is the only way to obtain victory. If that's true, then it might be better if he forgot about the goblin and spent his time trying to level up. But he would rather die than run away like a coward. He has no plans of letting anyone get away with anything against him, nor is he going to live his life with regrets. If anyone tries to stab him in the back, then he will make sure they pay for it. But if he ran away just because he couldn't get revenge, his pride wouldn't be able to handle it. After dying again, Hyunwoo disappeared, and the red-cap goblin spent days looking for him. He couldn't find him, so he questioned if Hyunwoo had run away. Redcap couldn't stop searching yet. It was too early to relax. Not only can Hyunwoo revive, he is crafty. It couldn't stop looking for Hyunwoo because it didn't know what he was planning. No matter what, he couldn't let Hyunwoo reach them. Suddenly, a goblin called out to Redcap saying something terrible had happened to the others. It informed Redcaps that the others were dying because someone put poison in the drinking water, so Curson needed to return right now. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button.